This week's Parsha, Parshas Toldos, the Rebbe's father, Rebbe Lev Yitzchok, asks some interesting questions. We find that on the day that Avraham Avinu passed away, and Yankov was cooking the lentils, the adoshim, as Rashi explains, from when the family would return from the funeral, from the Levaya. So Esav came in and he said, Haliteni no, please fill me up from Mina Odom Azer. Rashi explains from the red lentils, the adoshim adumois that Yaakov prepared. And then Yaakov said, I'll give it to you, sell me the b'choira, as we know. But then here comes the question. At the end, it says in the pasuk, "V'Yaakov nosan le'Esav." Yaakov gave to Esav lechem unizid adoshim. He gave him also bread, lechem. Now Esav only asked for the adoshim. Ha'odom hazeh, give me the lentils. Why did Yaakov also give lechem, bread? Everything in Torah is also meduyik. Esav has 3 letters to his name: Ayin, Sin, Vov. Why dafka 3? You see, Yaakov has 4 letters. Esav has 3. It has to be a meaning. Explain to Rebbe's father like this. It explains in Kabbalah and Chassidus that when a person eats food, there are certain foods that give a person energy, and that is a positive energy in a sense that it brings out more the force of the Nefesh Elokis, his godly soul, to do the Avodah of Hashem. There are certain foods that relate more to the animalistic part of the person, and it has to be elevated. It's not bad, but it must be elevated. Bread, lechem, as Rashi explains earlier in Parshas Vayera, is lechem levav enish yisod. Lechem has a very special blessing and quality to it. It saturates a person. And that's why many mitzvahs are involved with lechem matzah, lechem mishnah, etc. That's the main chayus that a person gets. And it explains in Kabbalah and Chassidus, the source of lechem is from a very high source, and that's why it's so unique. It has a special bracha. The Chachamim will kivei a bracha la'atzma, a specific bracha for bread because of its unique quality. On the other hand, lentils, the Rebbe's father explains, if you look good, you will see it's more of what's called kitnius, legumes, beans. And it's called kitnius because it hints to katnus hamoichen, which means there is Shem Havaya, which is revelation of godliness, and the Shem Elokim, which adds up to Ateva, which conceals God. That's also the difference between, in general, a person has a nefesh elokis and nefesh abamis, a godly soul and an animalistic soul. The godly soul wants revelation, wants Shem Havaya. The animalistic soul wants our desires and lusts. Whatever we follow, it's fine. Conceals ungodliness. Animalistic food is kitnius, the Gemara says. Michael Behema is adoshim. Esav wanted adoshim. It's brought down in Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah. When a person comes back from a levaya, he has to have a suda, as we have in this week's Parsha, as mentioned. You prepare adoshim, or eggs, but adoshim you prepare. Another interesting thing the Rebbe's father says, the shiur, the measurement, the amount of how much a sheretz, there are shmoine shrotzim amurim b'Torah, there are 8 shrotzim that are mentioned in Parsha Shmini, and Lahalacha, how much of the meat that a person would touch in a nevela, if a sheretz dies and you touch on the nevela, how much of it, even if a piece, if you touch, you become tamei, is the shear of adosha from a lentil. Normally the shear of tumas are kezayis. Very unusual by a sheretz, it's ka'adosha. Adosha is also the color of red. Red symbolizes gvura, al-chabr tichya. That's Esav Adam Adam Hazeh, that's a fiery, emotional, intense feeling and force, a prince of Gvura. So all these things show that Adoshim is a food that's Michael Behema that must be elevated. And now you'll understand why the Rebbe's father explains Yaakov gave Esav also lechem. Lechem, it's brought down from the Arizal, adds up to 3 times Shem Havaya. 3 times 26 adds up to 78 lechem. Melach, salt, also adds up to 78. And that's why, brought down after Rebbe Shulchan Aruch from Kabbalah, we dip in the lechem into the melach 3 times, corresponding to the 3 times of Shem Havaya. Why 3 times? So in a nutshell, a person has 4 parts to him. He has his neshama, his essence. Then he has his mind, his seichel. Then he has his feelings, his emotion. And then he has the action, how he behaves. The Yetzer Hara and Nefesh Bahamis cannot affect a person's essence. A neshama is always there. It's always pure. But where can the Nefesh Bahamis confuse a person? He can bring in thoughts into him, his seichel he could confuse. He can bring in him lusts and desires and unwishful feelings in his heart. And he could also affect in his behavior, in his conduct. So there's 3 parts where a person has to make sure the Esav doesn't get into him. And that's why the Rebbe's father says that the 3 letters of Esav, Kabbalistically he explains it over there, I'm not going to go into it now, corresponds to the 3 parts where Esav wants to affect the Yid. The ayin corresponds to his seichel, the sin to his midos, to his feelings, and the vav to the maisa. Now this is what Yankov told Esav. Esav, you want to have only these lentils. If I'm going to give you only these lentils, I'm going to reinforce your koyach, your power, your energy in the world. My job is, Yankov said, me and my children and your children, our job is, Yidden with Torah, to affect, to elevate you. And therefore, I'm also going to give you lechem. So the 3 times of Shem Havaya, which is in the lechem, will elevate the adoshim that you're going to eat. And together, the lechem and adoshim, that's when we will have the energy from the Nefesh Elokis, the 3 times Havaya, to elevate us and you, which means that we should think the proper way through Torah, we should have the proper feelings, and we should do the Ma'aseh Mitzvahs B'Poyel.